All right, it looks like we are live. Yay, we made it. We got through our tech difficulties and we are here. This is very exciting. Welcome, everybody. My name is Diane Rose Solomon, and I'm the founder of Animal Magic Films. Here we go. That's us. And thank you for joining us for the 16th interview in the Science and Magic of the Human-Animal Bond interview series. So be sure to like this video and do all the liking and all the subscribing that you can on YouTube and Facebook. Join our Facebook group, The Science and Magic of the Human-Animal Bond. The more you like it, the more people see it, and the more people and animals that we can serve in this world. So we will be exploring many of the ways that animals help people and people help animals. In my opinion, it's a both and conversation where we all benefit from the bond. I know I've benefited immensely from my relationship with my pets, from a surprise therapy dog visit in the hospital years ago, and just from animals all around. And I experience great joy watching other people heal from their interactions with animals. And I also love non-companion animals, wild animals, farm animals, you name it. But now we get to hear from you, people like Beth, who is our guest today, who are making our relationships with our pets, with our communities, and our natural environment just a little bit better. So please welcome my guest, Beth Miller. Welcome, Beth. It's so nice to see you.
Oh, it's great to see you too. Thank you so much for the kind words.
Oh, sure. Well, we're just getting started. It's about to get even better because I get to share more about who you are, which is really cool. So Beth Miller is the CEO and founder of Wagtown, specifically wagtown.org. And it's a national nonprofit organization that works with communities to become more authentically and responsibly dog-friendly as an economic driver and community builder. I mean, that's a lot right there, so we're going to talk about that. After spending decades honing her skills and earning more than 50 professional awards and honors, wow, she decided to pursue her vision of Wagtown. Bringing along her experience with strategic planning, advocacy, marketing, graphics, teaching, public speaking, and brand development, Beth left a C-suite position to take a leap of faith. She has since conducted more than 500 interviews, amassed the nation's largest dog-friendly research base, wow, and become a sought-after subject matter expert, award-winning animal advocate, speaker, and author. Beth lives in the Dayton, Ohio area. She pursues her passion for gardening, scuba diving, golfing, service dog fostering, and really cute puppy that you have now, and dog drool cleanup. So that's a great bio, Beth. Welcome again.
Thank you so much. Very kind of you to say that.
Oh my goodness. So let's just start from the beginning. Tell us what Wagtown is and what inspired you to begin this work.
Okay. That's a great question because people are always asking me what's dog friendly, and that's really what got it started. Was conversations that I had with different people who were sort of in the weeds, so to speak, with animal welfare issues and rescue and saving and fostering and all those critical things that happen in communities. When I asked what the vision looked like when they were no longer needed, what would that look like if they were truly dog friendly? And nobody could answer my question. Nobody knew what it was going to look like. And I thought, well, how are we going to get there if we don't know what we're shooting for, right? So that kind of stuck in my brain. And then when I left the agency to go to get my master's program, and I wrote the strategy for Wagtown as a nonprofit. And my goal was to create something that worked at the 50,000 foot level. So we don't do grooming, we don't do rescue, we don't, well, now we're fostering one dog, but we're not in the weeds, so to speak. What we're trying to do is get roadblocks out of the way. And so we look at things like welcoming infrastructure, and it's not so much dog parks only, but off-leash areas for them to play, but access to areas where they can be with their humans, where they can make humans feel better, access to different recreation spaces. And that leads then into responsible dog ownership behavior, which is sort of the number one killer of dog friendliness is irresponsible dog ownership behavior. So you want to be a reason that dog friendliness happens, not the reason that it is resisted. So what we do is try to create tools for people to identify if they're, for instance, in a dog friendliness desert. So a lot of trying to figure out what dog friendliness is difficult because everyone I talk to has a different definition of that. And a lot of times what they come back to me with is they know what it doesn't look like. They've seen where there are not dog friendly areas. But to say, what does the specific thing look like? It's difficult to nail that down. And it's also difficult because what's acceptably dog friendly in one part of the country or even one part of a state is very different from other areas. It changes urban versus suburban versus rural. It changes what country you're in, what section of the country you're in. And so it's definitely a moving target, but it's also a target that everyone is going after. So it really comes down to, is your dog welcome in the community? Do they have resources for you and the dog to have a happy, healthy life? Is it humane in that community? Do they support organizations that deal with animal welfare? Are the communities safer because the dog people work with the law enforcement people and the public health individuals to have a really good relationship where they can collaborate and have the communities be safer and healthier through dogs instead of just sort of looking at it as sort of an avoidance factor? And then you see economic vitality happen, because when you start looking at the entrepreneurs in the pet space, that's $100 billion industry. There are a lot of openings for new product innovation and ways to make dogs happier and healthier. And that also rolls into retail experiences, service experiences. So if you live in a community where you don't have options for emergent medical care for your dog, if you don't have options for the kind of veterinary, if you don't have the choice to go with something holistic, what training options are available in your community? Can you afford them? Are there safety nets in place for people who can't keep their dogs for whatever reason? Do you have resources for people who are homeless that have their dogs? So it really becomes the development of a community that cares for its people by understanding that the dogs are part of that family. And how are you going to change the community to reflect that and to welcome people to want to be there, because that's the environment they're seeking, which is what we're seeing all over the country, is this push for, I want my dog, who's a part of my family, to be a part of the community.
Wow, that is amazing. And one of the things I was thinking about, you're talking about what's acceptable in one area isn't necessarily considered acceptable somewhere else. So there's clearly a spectrum, right? Is there, and you don't have to name a place, a specific place, but in your mind, is there a place that you find is the closest to what you would the ideal Wagtown, poster community?
Yeah.
Or is everybody a work in progress?
I think it's a work in progress. And I think part of the issue there is, like, we're working on a smart dog park project with a community, and their values in that community, it's an extremely cerebral community. Most people there have PhD level education, so very into knowledge and things like that. So what they would expect as dog friendliness in their community is very different from a community that's sort of high paced, high tech, that kind of environment. So what I'm seeing is, like, when you go to Portland and Seattle, I think it's Seattle, there are 33 dog parks just in the downtown area. It's most, people that don't even have a dog park in their community are like, that's amazing. But that's there because they have residents living there. So there's a need for immediate access to potty areas, exercise spaces, open green space for them to play and to be socialized and all of those things. But that may not work in another community where it's suburban, where everybody has a big yard. And so the need for a dog park changes according to the residents that are in there, the kind of housing options they have, what kind of land space they have. Do they have some fallow space? Do they have some brown space where they're not using that for any kind of recreation purpose currently? And then there's the issue of, what are they planning on using it for? So it does become difficult to say, this is the one. Now, I can tell you, I have favorite dog parks that I've seen. There's one this is a perfect example of how it doesn't mean the same thing to everybody. So there is a dog park that I adore in Lake George, New York. And it's in one of the best RV parks in the country. So it's just pristine. It's in the Adirondacks. It's just absolutely gorgeous. One of the best dog parks I've ever seen construction wise. It's part turf grass specific for dogs. It's got boulders. There's a whole wooded section with paths and agility equipment. There's a chalet with a dog wash, and it looks like really high end. I would take my dog there all the time just because it's beautiful, but it is very it's very constructed. That project I think was $813,000 for a dog park.
Wow.
And it was perfect for that environment. If you put that dog park in Marymore, where there's Marymore Dog Park or in Redmond, Washington.
Mm-hmm.
That space is completely natural. All of their amenities are completely natural. You're sitting on limestone and logs, and everything is sort of crushed gravel trails, and they have put-ins like you would for kayaks, but they're for dogs to go in the water. And so those are every once in a while. And it's just a very natural environment that matches the sensibilities and the priorities and what they value in the Pacific Northwest area for that crowd.
Right. So it's
So
different.
if you took that park and put it in the other place, I don't know that it would fly. And I definitely don't think that the one in Lake George would be accepted in the Pacific Northwest because it's somewhat fabricated. You know what I mean? So you really need to look at the user base. And it's the same thing for dog friendliness. You know, when I was growing up, the way that I treated my dog and the way that people treated the dogs in general, it was much more like property that you owned the dog. And now they're in a stroller. So, you know, things have changed. So I think just by the nature of our relationship with dogs and with animals in general, that definition of dog friendly is constantly evolving. But now when you look at, like, say, advertising, you know, I challenge you to go to any commercial break and there not be a dog in at least one of the commercials. People used to say, and my background is ad agency, right? So our rule was no kids and no dogs.
Oh, now it's dogs and kids, right?
None of those. It takes forever, right? Because you can't make them do what you want to do all the time. So, and that was before we had like talent agents for dogs and things like that. So having a talent agency just for dogs and cats, that says a lot about who we are as a country now and where the demand is. So we're also seeing that the communities that are saying we want to attract a talented young workforce, people who want to really live in the community and experience all the amenities, and they want to spend money there. They want to invest in their education and housing and all the things that kind of strengthen the community economically. And they want to live in an area where their dog feels welcome, that there are resources for that. When I was in Seattle, you couldn't throw a dog biscuit without hitting some kind of service facility or boarding kennel or a grooming salon or something for dogs everywhere. It was like being in Seattle with Starbucks everywhere, only it was dog stuff everywhere. So to me, that's extremely dog friendly. But we've also seen where there are a lot of, I guess, freedoms for people to have their dog with them. But at the same time, there'll be breed restrictions where they can come in and take your dog and put it down. There'll be examples where they have extreme cases of abuse with no real support to rescue the animal, rehabilitate the animal, and deal with the crime that happened with the person. So sometimes it comes down to resources. So I don't know. I think we're always going to be searching for that perfect environment, but you have to keep in mind that I think it's always going to be a moving target. So the best we can hope for is let's assess where we live, look for the pain points. Like for instance, in our area, we had corruption and a lot of euthanasia, one of the worst rates in the country, the worst in the state of Ohio for euthanasia. There was a lot of corruption. So, you know, even though we've made some strides in certain areas, when you have an animal resource center that is punitive instead of a resource for the community to keep animals in their homes and to help people better understand how to be a responsible pet owner, you can't have both of those things exist in the same place. That's where it's on the residents, and that's where it is on the newspapers and, you know, anybody who is investigating that to shine a spotlight on things that aren't working that affect the dogs' lives and all the people that are connected to them. Because just like when you plop a Pomeranian into a town and there's a ripple effect, it's also the same when you plop irresponsible dog ownership behavior or inhumane behavior. Once you throw those things in there, then I have trouble saying that, yeah, you're a dog friendly place to live. Boulder is a good example. Boulder was one of the few cities that I found that actually had a licensing system where to be in an off-leash area, you were required to have a tag proving that your dog had voice and sight control. So for non-dog people, that means that if you call your dog, you can see your dog. If they hear you or see you, you can get them to come to you immediately. It doesn't matter what else is going on. That's a pretty big chore for any dog, right?
Yeah, it's demanding.
But they wanted people to, in their dog parks and places like that, to know that you had the ability to recall your dog and get them out of a situation. So you would say, that's dog friendly. They're providing services. They're making sure the behavior is good. They're encouraging responsible dog owner behavior. But that's still the same city that before, you know, until not too long ago, they could come to your house and take your dog and put it down.
Well, that was Denver, right? Wasn't
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah. So it's
Denver.
when you think people think of Colorado, the great place for the dog. We got the pictures. Yeah, sorry, Boulder. And
That's okay.
so, you get into these situations where it's not just about the feel, and it's not just about cute dogs on the corner and that kind of thing. You really need to get deep into it and say, what is there legislatively that is prohibiting dogs from living their best lives in this city, in this state, in this country? And how can we address that? And a lot of times it's because the control over what happens to animals doesn't really fall under the right category of supervision. So, for instance, in Ohio, changing the law to allow dogs on the patios didn't happen until a couple of years ago. And if you would have told people it's illegal to go with your dog to the local pub and have them sit out on the patio with you, and they could come and kick you out and not let you come again. Most people didn't even know that law existed, but it just came from the health department that there was one guy that didn't like dogs and decided he was going to make a point of it. So he was going around to pubs and eateries that were allowing dogs to come in and citing them after the fact when they were having events to raise money for humane organizations.
Wow.
So the trickle effect there is, you have brand loyalty from these customers that are bringing their family members into the dogs, into this space that encourages a great day sales wise for that place. In addition to that, you're supporting the humane organization. You're also socializing the dogs. You're getting people used to understanding how to approach a dog. It's just, there are so many benefits to doing that. Not just the economic impact of that was just huge. So really getting involved in legislation and finding out, why is this a law in the first place? And we spent months trying to find some kind of research that would show why you shouldn't have dogs on patios. And we couldn't find anything that was the least bit substantial that would really intimate any reason that they couldn't do that. So that's just one guy in one health department in one city in one state, right? Now you're talking about these people all over the country. How can you get all those people to have the same perspective about that one specific issue? And then you realize that one specific issue is one of millions. That's where it becomes difficult. So that's where you start to say, we're going to have to choose some pillars for what we stand for. And if you want to have the following things, you might end up finding yourself, to your point about Colorado, something that I call a breed discrimination refugee. And that's a person, I just had a friend of mine call me and say, do you know someone who can foster my dog for a little bit? I took a new job and we found a place to live, and I just found out that they ban huskies. And so I can't move now. I have to move out of the city where I can't afford, and I'll have to figure out how to get to work, how to manage, having my dog and caring for my dog. So, financially he's impacted. It could affect his ability to take that job. He doesn't have the ability to be flexible with his future just based on what kind of dog he has. And so it takes away your options. It takes away your wealth potential. It takes away your ability to have a human animal bond scenario in your community. You can't have those connections where people benefit mentally and physically and emotionally and psychologically and just resiliency. All of those things are supercharged when we start to treat our dogs and each other with more respect, with more empathy, with more caring. And you take steps to say, come on in, you're welcome. We want you to be here. And that translates directly into, we want you, Jim or Jane or Susan or whatever your name is. We want Sparky because we know that we want you. And we know that you will not come without Sparky.
Right.
So the value proposition there has really shifted to the point where now community leaders and economic development specialists, and obviously people who are looking to make a buck off of the dog friendly thing, they're chasing it like crazy. So this is the perfect opportunity for us to say, let's set standards. Let's say we can do better. And that's what we're hoping people will do when they hear about what Wagtown is trying to teach people.
Wow, that was serious 50,000 foot level. There's so many moving parts to this. There are so many moving parts to this. Defining it, implementing it, there's just so much to it. It's really quite amazing. And you actually answered so many of my questions. Usually I ask, how does what you do help people? Well, you're helping people get their job, be able to keep their jobs, be safe, feel like they're welcome. How does it help animals? It's pretty obvious, but do you want to add anything more specifically to those questions that I didn't, that you haven't really answered already by explaining so much?
Well, I think part of the problem with communities not getting there just yet is that it's the sort of thing where people say, we should be this, and somebody needs to do that. And what we need to realize is you're the person that needs to do it, and you're the person who needs to contact people. Ask yourself, can I give a little bit, whether it be financial or time or talent, to that organization or to
Mm-hmm.
that community, whatever the case may be. You can move the needle. And if you feel like you don't know how, that's where we come in, where we offer education, so that it says, let's say you want to bring an off-leash area to your community. Well, how do you do that without
Right.
the age-old issues of feces management and
Mm-hmm.
dog fights and people coming in and having bad human behavior? Most of the problems at a dog park are from the humans, not
Yes.
from the dogs. So, we built a program called the Smart Dog Park System. So that people do feel more empowered to do that. Now we have K-1 curriculum to help kids better understand the role of dogs in their lives and how to stay safe with them. We wrote a children's book called Tucker Finds His Forever Home about breed discrimination and abandonment of dogs when there are no resources to keep them. So just little things along the way that help people, whether they're 80 or 8, to better understand the impact that they have on dogs and the impact that dogs and all animals have on us. And it's the exchange for that. I mean, the return on investment in embracing dogs and the dog culture, it's enormous. I mean, the benefits definitely outweigh any kind of consternation about, sort of revolutionizing the culture of your community to be more welcoming, to be safer, and to be more humane.
Wow, amazing. In fact, I was going to ask you about Tucker, your new book. Do you have a copy that you can hold up near
I do,
you?
yeah. Do I ever? Here it is.
Yay,
You can
Tucker
see it.
finds his forever. I
There's
read your
Tucker
book.
Finds His
It's,
Forever Home. Yes,
yeah,
yes.
it's
And then, as you can
wonderful.
see on here, 100%
Of
go to.
proteins.
So we're giving 100% of the book right back into projects and programs for animal welfare. So when I first started creating the project and the curriculum, sat down with Tom and like, here's the deal. We're going to make a difference, and then we're going to make it revenue sustainable, right? Make a difference, make the money. The difference will always outweigh the money, but
Of course.
you have to have money to make the difference, right?
Of course.
So how do you do that in a way that doesn't impact local organizations that desperately need the money for being in the weeds? Well, you do that by appealing to things nationally or offering training that they don't offer that would then in turn help those organizations raise more money for humane operations that they haven't taken. To have people be a proponent of off-leash spaces or access to businesses or dog-friendly workplaces or bringing in a business. I know Google, when they moved their headquarters to Austin, one of the reasons they cited was dog friendliness.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's talk about an economic driver. If you can bring Google to your town because of a poodle,
Yeah.
that's the power of the dog, right?
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. In fact, I was just reading an article last week about, people preparing to go back to work, and more companies are saying we're planning to, we're at least investigating becoming dog friendly, because so many people now have dogs and they've been with their dogs over the past year during the pandemic.
Yeah.
And it's, between, dog sitters and, doggy daycares. And, those are two options, but also, does my job allow me to bring my dog? And that's like another element of dog friendliness, right?
Oh, definitely. Most definitely. In fact, when I was in Park Slope in Brooklyn doing research in the New York area,
Mm-hmm.
I had many realtors tell me that the question is no longer how are the schools? The number one question they're getting now is where can I take my dog?
Right. Wow.
So yeah, they're seeing it
That's
definitely as a push
remarkable.
there, and we're starting to see that in other niches. And you talked about the dog friendly workplaces. From the human animal bond research that's been done, that the impact on productivity goes
Mm-hmm.
up, the work satisfaction goes up, the interpersonal communication skills goes up, the attendance at work goes up, the retention of the employees goes up, and most people surveyed would actually give up vacation time in exchange for being able to have their office be dog friendly.
Wow.
So that's
That's
really saying
huge.
something, because that's
That's huge.
money and time, and that's
Mm-hmm.
two precious things to people. So if they're willing to give up time and money just so they can have a cocker spaniel at their feet, you know, and it's going to benefit your business. Now, I'm not saying that it's right for every business. There are health reasons why you
Of
can't have
course.
dogs and maybe it doesn't fit your brand. If it doesn't fit your brand, don't do it. If you have customers who are not dog lovers, don't do it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that dog friendliness should be a mandate. I think it should be something that's applied intelligently and thoughtfully where it fits. And I think
Brilliant.
that's the way
Brilliant.
to go, is
Brilliant.
to
Yeah.
educate yourself. Reach out to me, wagtown.org. Just reach out to me, because there are, like with businesses, there's liability, there's training, there are assumptions about the ability for that animal to function in a polished environment like that. When you think about those dogs that are being, adopted and rescued and fostered during the pandemic, think about your life before the pandemic. You went out with friends, you went to ball games, you saw live music, you would go out to dinner, you'd go on vacations. That was the way your life was, right? You had very social experiences, you were exposed to new things. And when the pandemic hit, we're having, catastrophic psychological backlash from the pandemic, just because people have had to significantly change the experience of what their life looks like.
Yeah.
So, and when you think about how hard that has been for all of us, now you're talking about taking a dog that it doesn't have the ability to express itself like that, and you're going to do the exact opposite. You're going to go from a quiet environment where there's not a whole lot of new people to meet, not a lot of stimulation about new things that they need to be desensitized toward, and just going out and doing things. So now you're switching that out. You're going to be gone. They're going to be in a kennel. They're not going to know what happened. They're used to a certain amount of stimulation from you that's going to be gone. When you come home, their behavior is going to be act out behavior. So, you're really putting them back into like pre-pandemic versus pandemic. Now you're like this with each other. You don't have this common bond. So then you find a company like Trupanion. We went to visit them, and I think they said they have 300 dogs that have passed a test to be able to come to work with them. And on any given day, there'll be 50 to 80 dogs on site. And there are dog beds everywhere, and they just kind of find their own dog friends, and they'll just chill and take naps with each other. And the environment there is accepting. That's something that they want. The people have expectations for what their dog behavior needs to be when they do come there. So they've been very thoughtful about the fact that not only does it fit their brand, obviously, dog insurance, but it also fits the kind of people who want to work there. These are people who are vet techs, veterinarians, people who want to be around animals, who care about their well-being. Those are the kinds of people who are going to, expect actually to have a dog-friendly environment. Other areas of the country, you wouldn't go into work in most places and expect to see a Labrador. But there are other areas of the country where you absolutely would. And it still has to match the brand, the customer, how you operate, whether it's legal, if you can handle liability. Some places you'll lose your liability insurance if you have certain things going on. So there's a lot of, like you said, so many moving parts. The important thing is pick something that you believe in that can be changed in your community, whether it's about safety, whether it's about health, whether it's about humane behavior, economic development, welcoming infrastructure, responsible dog ownership behavior, is something that we can all work on, because we all think that we are responsible dog owners, and all of us have some room to grow there. So just pick something in that category or any of those categories where you can start to move the needle forward in a way that takes fears away from dogs, or it takes fears away from people about dogs, or it enables, like we had restaurants that were reporting 20% income bumps on dog days when they had dogs on their patios. So now you're talking about taking away their ability to, thrive economically and have their business do well. Well, now, like you said, we're coming out of the pandemic. If that's something that gives them an economic edge, and they need that right now, I would hate to see that not be an option for them.
Right.
So when it's seen as a driver for, a better community, for a better environment to just exist in, whether you're a dog or not, that's what we're shooting for. Where is the place that you can live freely, where you feel like you're welcome and loved and cared for, and that there are support systems to make sure you're going to be okay for your whole life? That's where people want to live. But they also want that for their family. And that part of their family just happens to have 4 legs.
That's beautiful. Perfectly said. So well done. I love it. And you raised a few points there where people might have questions for you. And can you tell me where people can learn more and can find you?
Sure. Every week on Wednesdays, we do an hour-long live at 12 EST, and we talk with different people about how they're making a difference in dogs' lives, opportunities for people to take things to the next level. So we do that at noon EST. We have a conversation too at 8 o'clock on Clubhouse, which not a lot of people are on there, but if you're an iPhone person and you're in there, we talk about other topics in there, but also, presentations. I've been brought in to speak to different groups about how to get there. If you want to hire me one-on-one for consulting, we have education programs. So whatever wherever you are on that arc, whatever you want to learn about, we have either a product, a service, or a consulting option for you. Dogs. So if you just reach out to me at beth@wagtown.org, or just go to wagtown.org, you can kind of see a little bit about what we're doing. And when you look in the news, you can see all the projects, some of the research that we're doing. Maybe it'll inspire you to do a couple of projects in your own community. And I would, before you even reach out to me, check and see what's going on in your community. There's a download available on our website that's the 6 things you need to do before you start a dog park. And those 6 things are very similar to what you should do no matter what you're doing with dogs in your community. It's just some table stakes, so to speak, for doing that. So we have some tools that are automated, but if you want to just have like a consult with me, please, reach out to me. I'm happy to help you walk through where you are, what your options are, and where a good place might be to start.
So great. I love it. And I see it helping the community, the individuals, the animals. It's just so great. Yeah. Well, thank you, Beth. This has been amazing. I'm sure we could just talk for hours about this because it's fascinating. But we're going to wrap up for today, and I really, really appreciate that you joined us and shared about Wagtown. And absolutely. I think everybody that's watching is just going to be thinking, they'll be at the very least looking at their community with a whole new lens, and maybe it'll spark some change as well in some in communities.
Yeah, look at your community and say, how can I make the WAG happen?
Wonderful, wonderful. Yeah. Fantastic. So thank you, Beth, so much. It's been wonderful speaking with you. And before we go, just a few quick announcements. Don't forget to join our community. You can visit animalmagicfilms.com, where you can learn more about our upcoming films. We've got one coming out pretty soon, and other news that we've got. Join our Facebook group, Science and Magic of the Human-Animal Bond. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, Animal Magic Films. And if you have a story about the human-animal bond or anything you'd like to share, you're welcome to email me. Perhaps it will go up on my website. Perhaps we'll have a conversation like this. And here again is Beth. So thank you again, Beth. This is where people can find you at wagtown.org. Thank you so much to everybody who's joined us today for this interview. And thanks again, Beth. This has been wonderful learning about you and about Wagtown. And we will be back again in 2 weeks with another fabulous guest.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Good talk.
Oh, it's my pleasure, Beth. All right. We'll speak soon.